Hello everyone, I'm Jack Fisher and welcome to my world. And for fans of NFL football, this truly is the most wonderful time of the year. Yeah, Christmas is great and all, but this is the start of a new NFL season. Every team is undefeated. Every fan can make the case that their team will make a run towards Super Bowl 60. Now granted, certain cases are much stronger than others, but those details don't matter now. It's a brand new season. The slate is clean, and everyone has a path towards a Lombardi trophy. And no matter how favored one team might be, the NFL always finds a way to surprise us. Now, last year certainly had some unexpected shifts. Even though the Chiefs and the Eagles got to the Super Bowl for the second time in 3 years, the outcome was very different. And the path they took to that title game was also different. One team won with more luck than skill. The other was stacked in a way that shouldn't have been possible in the salary cap era. And along the way, new stars arose. Certain teams overachieved, others faltered spectacularly, and some just got unlucky in a way that only Cleveland Browns fans can understand. The 2024 season really felt like a turning point for the league. The momentum of certain players, divisions, and teams shifted considerably. Trends that we thought we understood defied expectations. Even though everyone tries to predict the outcome every season, everyone ultimately fails. While I did get lucky a few years with my predictions, last year was a lot less prophetic. I was still half right in that I predicted the Chiefs to make it to the Super Bowl and lose. I was still dead wrong about who they would face. I really did think the Lions were going to make a run in 2024. Even though they were the top seed in the NFC, injuries and bad luck derailed their chances. That's fairly typical. The NFL is just that chaotic. It's part of why we love it so much. And regardless of how accurate or flawed my predictions are, I'm going to try again for the 2025 season. Now, I always have to note that I am not an expert. I don't pretend to know more than a typical die-hard football fan. So please keep that in mind as I attempt to predict the winner of every division, as well as who I expect to triumph in Super Bowl 60. Historically, the AFC East has been one of the most lopsided divisions in football. For nearly 2 decades, Tom Brady and the New England Patriots had a lock on this division. They usually had it clinched before Christmas, often to the surprise of no one. But just as Tom Brady left New England, the Buffalo Bills ascended. Quarterback Josh Allen has proven year after year that he is the best quarterback in the AFC East. And he definitely ranks among the best quarterbacks in the league right now. Under head coach Sean McDermott, the team is good enough to win the division year after year, but just not good enough to go all the way in the postseason. And I don't expect that to change much in 2025. New England really crashed and burned last season, so much so that they fired Gerard Mayer after just 1 year. Rookie quarterback Drake May did show some flashes, but the team around him is a long way from competing against the Bills. As for the Miami Dolphins, I'm often tempted to pick them as a sleeper team. But under head coach Mike McDaniel, this team regularly reminds me that they have a low ceiling. Quarterback Tua Tagovailoa just can't stay healthy, and aside from Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, there just aren't enough playmakers, and the defense tends to be mediocre on their best day. Now on paper, the New York Jets do have a fair amount of talent. Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson are legitimate stars on their side of the ball. But quarterback Justin Fields is already on his 3rd team, and new head coach Aaron Glenn has to rebuild once again. I can still envision a scenario where the Dolphins and the Jets challenge the Bills for the division. But at the end of the day, Josh Allen is the better quarterback by a wide margin, and the Buffalo Bills are a more complete team overall. So long as Josh Allen stays healthy and the Bills remain consistent, the AFC East will remain lopsided. Whether the Bills can make any progress in the playoffs, well, that remains an open question. Over the years, there have been divisions that just seem overly stacked with talent. And for the past 5 years, the AFC North has been that division. Whether by luck or fluke, this division boasts 2 MVP caliber quarterbacks, one of the league's best defenses, and the Steelers team that always manages to finish above 500. But even though the Pittsburgh Steelers have been a model franchise since the 1970s, they've been mired in mediocrity for years now. Head coach Mike Tomlin might be consistent for a team that values that, but there's no question that the Steelers are lacking in key areas. They have struggled to find a quarterback that carried them like Ben Roethlisberger, often trying to get away with mid-level talent under center. But that approach just hasn't worked. In 2025, the Steelers are attempting to fix this issue with 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. But this is not the same Aaron Rodgers who won multiple MVPs with Green Bay. This is an Aaron Rodgers at the end of his career. While I'm sure he would love to go out on a high note, the AFC North is just too loaded with obstacles. Unlike the Steelers, the Baltimore Ravens have been a better kind of consistent. Quarterback Lamar Jackson has been dynamic, capable, and effective. He's carried the Ravens into the playoffs year in and year out. He's also gotten them on the cusp of a Super Bowl, only ever losing to teams that also happen to have a top-tier quarterback. But as good as Jackson is, nearly every other metric says Joe Burrow is better. The way he played in 2024 was nothing short of remarkable. Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals put up some staggering numbers throughout the season, but it was largely a combination of bad luck and porous defense that kept them out of the playoffs by only a game. And I am convinced that if the Bengals stuck into the playoffs in 2024, they would have made a run. Sadly, they didn't get that chance. But in the same way good luck always runs out, bad luck tends to balance out in the NFL. And I expect the Bengals to be much better in 2025. As for the Browns, well, the less said about their quarterback situation, the better. But they can still boast one of the league's best defenses. They also have one of the best defensive players in Myles Garrett. That will keep the Browns in many games throughout the season. But until they find a capable starter at quarterback, they're not breaking through in 2025. At least not enough to win the division. I think more luck will be on the side of the Bengals this season. If Joe Burrow stays healthy, the Bengals will emerge through a very competitive division. And they will be poised to do some real damage in the postseason. Whereas certain divisions are consistent in terms of who tends to win every year, other divisions just seem stuck. And for the past 5 years, the AFC South has been downright stagnant. Talented players like Derrick Henry have left, and once promising quarterbacks like Trevor Lawrence and Anthony Richardson are dangerously close to draft bust territory. Both the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Tennessee Titans were among the worst teams in the league in 2024. And it showed even in the early parts of the season. The Jaguars can no longer blame former head coach Urban Meyer for their failures. For the past 2 seasons, quarterback Trevor Lawrence just can't seem to improve beyond a certain point. And the team around him lacks depth, cohesion, and talent to make up for these deficiencies. And while the Jaguars did make a splash in drafting Travis Hunter, it's hard to imagine this team going far, especially after firing Doug Peterson and hiring Liam Cohn. It'll mark the 3rd time in his career that Lawrence has had to learn a new offense. And aside from Eric Armstead and Trayvon Walker, there's not much in terms of defensive talent to work with. But the Titans might actually be in an even worse position. Sure, they landed quarterback Cam Ward in the draft, but they did do plenty to earn that number 1 overall pick. They may have boasted a stingy defense in 2024, but that defense wore down heavily by the middle of the season. And former quarterback Will Levis took such a beating that he may be out of the league. Now, it's hard to say for certain how well Cam Ward will do as a rookie. Given how much the bar has been raised for rookie quarterbacks in recent years, he has a lot to live up to, and not many tools with which to do it. There's no question that the Titans are very much in a rebuilding mode, and the Indianapolis Colts are only in a slightly better position. For a time, I honestly thought that Anthony Richardson would develop into a capable quarterback. But between frequent injuries and a lackluster defense, his career might already be over. I don't believe that their starting quarterback is on the roster right now, and I don't see them having nearly enough talent or depth to compete with the Houston Texans. And it's not just because CJ Stroud has established himself as one of the best young quarterbacks in the league. The Texans really do have a legitimately good team, including a true receiving threat in Nico Collins. And had the offensive line not been plagued with injuries last year, I honestly think they would have done more in the playoffs. They will likely get that chance again in 2025, because while the rest of the AFC South continues to rebuild, the Texans continue to push forward. It's just a matter of whether they can push a little harder in the playoffs. Every year since 2019, I start my discussion of the AFC West by saying Patrick Mahomes is awesome. But after the 2024 season, I have to add some caveats. Both he and the Kansas City Chiefs as a whole were exceedingly lucky. In the NFL, luck is a real thing that manifests. Sometimes the ball just bounces in a way that favors a particular team. And in 2024, the Chiefs seemed to get every lucky bounce they could hope for until the Super Bowl. And that one game, beyond denying the Chiefs a three-peat, exposed what happens when luck isn't on their side. And no team, even one with Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Chris Jones, can rely on luck to guide them in 2025. If the Chiefs do indeed feel the effects of a Super Bowl loss hangover, then the AFC West is actually wide open for once. The Denver Broncos seem to have found a legitimate starting quarterback in Bo Nix. He started the season sluggish, but he really developed week after week. And with a top 10 defense, I think the Broncos have what it takes to usurp the Chiefs. I could say the same thing about the LA Chargers. In any other division, Justin Herbert would be at the top of the pecking order. But having to play the Chiefs twice a year has kept the Chargers from progressing. Now, under head coach Jim Harbaugh, the team is playing a lot harder, and in the offseason, they made key acquisitions like Tyler Conklin and Najee Harris. As for the Las Vegas Raiders, well, I think it's fair to say that they're in a transition period. When the best quarterback on the roster is Geno Smith, it's hard to argue that this team is lacking. But they do have a rising star in tight end Brock Bowers, and they got the best running back in the draft in Ashton Genty. They're still years away from competing, but at the very least, things will be more competitive this time around. Now, I have bet against the Chiefs before, and I've been burned as a result. But seeing them get so lucky last year, only to get blown out in the Super Bowl, that has exposed them in ways I haven't seen before. So I'm going to risk being burned again and say the Los Angeles Chargers will win this division. I think it will be close. This could come down to the final week of the season. But I think Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert will finally end the Chiefs' reign atop the AFC West. They might need a little luck in doing so, but no team can dominate their division indefinitely. The Chiefs were bound to learn that lesson eventually, and I think 2025 is when it finally sinks in. Historically, the NFC East has been the most chaotic division in the NFL, but in the best possible way. I really struggle to predict this division every year. The fact that it hasn't had a repeat division winner since I was in grade school is a testament to that chaos. But in 2024, the NFC East was one of the most compelling divisions in football. It wasn't just that the Philadelphia Eagles put together a remarkable roster that won them the Super Bowl. We also saw rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels turn the Washington Commanders into a legitimate contender. Something no one has been able to say with a straight face since the early 90s. I will freely admit that that was one of the most shocking developments in 2024. Yes, I did predict Washington to win the division, but that was mostly because I thought the Eagles had regressed after 2023. And even though they ended up surging at just the right time, it's worth remembering, the last team to beat the Eagles in 2024 was Washington. And that was largely because of Jaden Daniels. And he did all of that despite having a team with a spotty defense and a makeshift offensive line. Those are both areas that Washington addressed in the offseason, trading for the likes of Laramie Tunsil while signing a crop of defensive linemen. At the same time, the Eagles lost coordinators and established stars like Josh Sweat. They still have what I believe to be the best roster in the NFL, but not by a wide margin. I fully expect that to make the Eagles and Commanders one of the best rivalries in the NFL in 2025. I also suspect the Dallas Cowboys to add to that chaos as they often do. It's true that they underachieved last season, and as good as quarterback Dak Prescott has been, the injuries have been piling up. The Cowboys are a good but fragile team. I can't say the same about the New York Giants. After giving up on Daniel Jones last season, they're trying to get by with veterans like Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston under center. But outside receiver Malik Neighbors, they don't have much to work with on offense. I still think they'll win enough games to keep them relevant in December, mostly because their defense is still solid, especially after drafting Abdul Carter. But in a division like this, that's just not going to be enough. So within all this chaos, which team ultimately emerges? I already thought Washington was on the rise last season, but after making it all the way to the NFC Championship game, they really raised the bar. And after a full offseason and an influx of fresh talent, I believe Washington will come out on top in 2025. The Eagles will keep it close, possibly until the final week of the season. But if Jaden Daniels can build on what he accomplished last year, Washington will be in a prime position to make it back to the playoffs and possibly do more. Of all the divisions in the NFL, the NFC North was the most fun to follow in 2024, unless you're a Chicago Bears fan. Now, I must formally acknowledge that I bought into the hype surrounding the Bears. I was convinced that drafting Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze would make them a force in the NFC. And despite starting the season fairly strong, the rest of the division ended up overachieving, while the Bears ended up collapsing. I was genuinely shocked that the Minnesota Vikings won 14 games in 2024, and with Sam Darnold as their quarterback no less. But there is no getting around it. The Vikings are a very good team, boasting what might be the best receiver in the league in Justin Jefferson. They won all those games despite losing their rookie quarterback before the start of the season. And they found a way to keep winning without relying too much on luck. The only problem is, they play in the same division as the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. And the Lions ultimately stopped the Vikings from getting any momentum at the end of the season. Despite a long list of injuries to key players like Aiden Hutchinson, the Lions still had their best season in franchise history, pulling off 15 wins. And they proved that they were the better team when they faced off against the Vikings in the final week of the 2024 regular season. But as good as the Lions were, the injuries were just too much to overcome. Washington really exposed them in the playoffs, and while many of those injured players are coming back, they really didn't do much to improve in the offseason. That's why I think the Packers are in the best position to shake up this division. The Vikings and Lions made all the headlines in 2024, but the Packers still have the most upside in my opinion. They did make the playoffs last year, and they were able to go toe-to-toe with the Eagles for a time. Quarterback Jordan Love seems to be improving with each passing year, and Josh Jacobs is still an underrated running threat. In many respects, the Packers are a lot like the Eagles in terms of roster depth. They're a fairly young team, but they don't rely too heavily on a handful of key players to carry them. Whereas the Vikings could not afford to lose Justin Jefferson, the Packers can afford to lose a few players on either side of the ball and still win. I do believe that the NFC North will once again be a fun division to follow in 2025. I think it's likely that multiple teams from this division will make the playoffs. But in terms of who I think will actually win, I believe the Packers are going to take a step forward. They have the youth and the depth, whereas the Lions and Vikings have established stars. And in the end, that depth will be what gets the Packers over the edge. They might not win the division by much, but they will make those last few weeks of the season very interesting. For the past 3 seasons, you could make the case that the NFC South is the weakest division in football. And I would not contest that claim. Outside the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this division is ripe with weak rosters, subpar quarterbacks, and underachieving veterans. It really wasn't that surprising to see the Bucs win the division again in 2024. It also wasn't too surprising to see them lose in the wildcard round of the playoffs. Quarterback Baker Mayfield has done plenty to manage an offense once led by Tom Brady. And receiver Mike Evans continues to be one of the most consistent receivers of the past decade. In any other division, that would be impressive, but not in the NFC South. The Atlanta Falcons were the closest the Bucs had to competition. On paper, they have legitimate talent at skill positions like Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, and Drake London. But on the field, that did not translate into more than just slightly above average. While I do believe that the Falcons were right to bench Kirk Cousins in favor of Michael Penix Jr., I am not sold on his ability to carry this team. Yes, the Falcons were in the playoff hunt in December, but that says more about the New Orleans Saints and the Carolina Panthers than it does about them. I actually think the Panthers overachieved somewhat. I expected them to be the worst team in football in 2024. But despite being benched for a time, quarterback Bryce Young did improve. By the end of the season, he earned himself another year as a starter. The rest of the team still has a lot of holes, too many for the Panthers to threaten the Bucs for the division. But the Panthers could ultimately be in a better position than the Falcons, having a young team with an emerging quarterback. They could still end up regressing, but I think their chances are far better compared to the Saints. It is tragic that quarterback Derek Carr's career has played out the way it has. The Saints invested heavily in him and the offense, only for a shoulder injury to derail his season before it even started. His abrupt retirement from the league leaves the Saints at a major crossroads. With Tyler Shaw and Spencer Rattler as the best quarterbacks on the roster, the ceiling is low for the Saints in 2025. And they may end up being the worst team in the league when all is said and done. But regardless of how things develop with the Saints, Falcons, and Panthers, the Bucs still have the most complete team. They have the most stability at quarterback. And until that changes, they will win the NFC South once again. It's a common refrain that injuries are part of the game. Every team in the NFL has them. And even when a team is legitimately good, enough injuries at certain positions can derail their season. That's exactly what happened to the San Francisco 49ers in 2024. They boasted one of the best rosters in the league. Quarterback Brock Purdy proved that he's more than just a capable quarterback in the right scheme. George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk also proved that they're among the best at their position. But multiple injuries at key positions kept the 49ers from going on another Super Bowl run. And the rest of the NFC West took full advantage of that. The LA Rams were the main benefactors. Quarterback Matthew Stafford may be on the tail end of his Hall of Fame career, but he remains very capable on a team that came very close to upsetting the Eagles in the playoffs. Now Stafford is returning for what could be his final season, and with receivers like Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, the Rams will be in a position to take him on one last run. But the rest of the division is still pretty stacked. The Arizona Cardinals were inconsistent in 2024, but quarterback Kyler Murray and receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. established a good dynamic. They surprised a lot of people under head coach Jonathan Gannon, and signing Josh Sweat in the offseason will make their defense more dynamic in the trenches. That lack of consistency kept them out of the division race last year, and I think they'll have a better chance in 2025. I want to say the same thing about the Seattle Seahawks. They've also invested in their defense, signing the likes of DeMarcus Lawrence and Ernest Jones. But after losing Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, I just can't see this team improving very much. The roster is still good on paper, but unproven on the field. And we just don't know if Sam Darnold can be as good without Justin Jefferson. You could still make the case for each team winning the NFC West. This is one division where the door is wide open, but as of this recording, before week 1 of the regular season, I believe the 49ers will bounce back. They have better coaching under Kyle Shanahan, and they have a better overall pedigree. That doesn't mean I think the 49ers will make another Super Bowl run. They just have too many aging players at the skill positions. And while the Rams have proven competitive with the best teams in the NFC, it may ultimately come down to which team is hotter and least injured in the final months of the season. And if the 49ers have even a slightly edge on that front, I think that'll be enough to win this division, but not much else beyond that. For the past 5 seasons, the NFL playoffs has been fairly formulaic for one side and chaotic for the other. In the AFC, it always seems to come down to the Chiefs. They always manage to breeze past the first couple rounds, only ever facing serious competition in the AFC Championship game. That game is usually competitive, but with the lone exception of 2021, the Chiefs usually come out on top. I don't think that's going to be the case in 2025. What the Eagles did to them in the Super Bowl revealed just how vulnerable the Chiefs really are. Patrick Mahomes might be the best quarterback of this generation, but even he has his limits, and I think more teams will exploit that. I could definitely see the Chiefs still making the playoffs, either as a wildcard team or a division winner, but I think competition from the likes of the Chargers, the Bengals, and the Broncos will prevent them from going to another Super Bowl. That might be welcomed by many fans throughout the league, especially in Buffalo, but as good as the Bills are, I don't think they have enough talent around Josh Allen this time. If they face a team like the Bengals or the Chargers, I don't see them being able to pull through. That legacy of choking in big games is difficult to overcome. In the end, I think the team that has the best chance to dominate the AFC is the Cincinnati Bengals. Bad luck kept them out of the playoffs last year. Whether they get in this year as a division winner or a wildcard team doesn't matter. Joe Burrow is among the best quarterbacks in the league. He knows how to beat a team like the Chiefs. He knows what it takes to get to the Super Bowl. And I think he will lead the Bengals to their second Super Bowl in 5 years. On the NFC side of things, that's a bit harder to predict. The Eagles may be defending champions, but there's no way they're keeping that stacked roster intact for another season. And as good as Saquon Barkley was during that championship push, running backs rarely carry that momentum into another season. I can still see the Eagles making it back to the NFC Championship game. I can also see teams like the Packers, Lions, and Buccaneers getting hot at just the right time. Even a team like Dallas, with all their drama and fragility, can buck history, make the playoffs, and go on a run. But of all the teams in the NFC with the most going for them, I think the Washington Commanders will come out on top. Jaden Daniels has proven time and again that he is a special caliber of player. He didn't just win games against playoff caliber teams. He made some of the most clutch plays of the 2024 season, one of which was against the eventual Super Bowl champion. This is not the same Washington team that failed to build on the rookie season of Robert Griffin III in 2012. This team was overhauled from top to bottom, including the owner. They are built to make a legitimate Super Bowl run. They may have been overmatched in the NFC Championship game in 2024, but in 2025, I think they'll overpower whoever they face in that game, thus setting the stage for a showdown in Super Bowl 60 between the Washington Commanders and the Cincinnati Bengals. After multiple Super Bowls featuring the Chiefs, Eagles, or 49ers, this matchup will draw more intrigue than most, even if you're not a fan of either team. One has played in multiple Super Bowls but never won. Another went through 30 years of irrelevance, mediocrity, and scandal. So both the Bengals and the Commanders will be extremely divisioned to deliver on the game's biggest stage. This will also be a chance for Washington head coach Dan Quinn to make up for his biggest failure. To date, he has the dubious honor of coaching a team that gave up a 28-3 lead in the third quarter in a Super Bowl. He was there when his team allowed the greatest comeback in NFL history on the game's biggest stage. And there's no way he wants that to be his most noteworthy achievement. Bengals head coach Zach Taylor wants a better legacy as well. Just getting to the Super Bowl is an achievement, but getting there twice and losing, that's more burden than legacy. He wants to be the coach known for bringing Cincinnati its first Super Bowl. And going into this game, he'll have the advantage of Joe Burrow being his quarterback. Even if Jaden Daniels is a more exciting player, the numbers don't lie. Joe Burrow is a better quarterback in terms of yards, touchdowns, and wins. He also happens to have two of the best receivers in the league with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. This is a team that can get into a shootout and win over any opponent. Now, Washington did improve its defense in the offseason. That may be enough to hinder most offenses in the NFL, but not this one. I can see the Bengals starting off hot, getting an early lead and using their offense to control the ball. That is the best way to keep Jaden Daniels from working his magic. Make sure he stays on the sideline and wear down that defense. But the Bengals defense also happens to have its share of shortcomings. Even if they're playing with a lead, the Commanders will find a way to keep it close. Jaden Daniels will make plays that astonish everyone watching. But in the end, that won't be enough to win this game. Joe Burrow has better weapons. The Bengals are a more complete team overall. It will likely be a one-score game heading into the fourth quarter. But Burrow's arm will prove more effective than Daniel's legs. And the Cincinnati Bengals will come out on top as winners in Super Bowl 60. It'll be a monumental triumph for the team and for the city of Cincinnati. And Joe Burrow will enjoy the best victory cigar he has ever had. The NFL is the undisputed king of American sports, and for good reason. This league, this game, and everything that goes into it is truly special. Every year, fans like me tune in, never certain of what they'll see. And no matter who ultimately wins the Super Bowl, every season brings plenty of memorable moments. Whether it involves incredible plays, exciting games, or off-field drama, the NFL gives us so many reasons to watch. Every new season brings with it a sense of hope, excitement, and anticipation. And every game feels relevant in some way. I never claim to know how it'll all play out. I make these predictions every year expecting them to be wrong or flawed. But that's exactly why I'm so passionate about football. I've been watching it my entire life, and as I've gotten older, that passion has only evolved. I really do feel it during times like this, knowing that a new season is about to start. No matter how off these predictions might be, I can safely say what fans have waited 7 months to say. I am ready for some football. Thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for joining me in my world. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and until next time, take care and stay safe.